Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another round of Rush Racing League Division 5 here. We are taking on the iconic Silverstone circuit here for a sprint weekend. So, apologies to the person in Twitch chat. You won't have Nishka here tonight. He is engineering, so you'll have myself, Patrick Coleman, aka Rekis. I'll be one of your hosts and commentators for tonight's Grand Prix. Alongside me is the one, the only F7. How you doing today, mate?
Good. Rekus, how are you?
I can't complain. I'm back here with Rush Racing here for a beautiful race here Monday night for Division 5, so it should be a lot of fun. Sprint weekend, the first of the season here at Rush for Season 9, so it'll be interesting. We have 9 laps in the sprints and then 26 laps in the feature. And with the UK, you always have to think about rain being a factor in, well, we have 4 different sessions, so it could be in any session here. So it could be in any of the qualifying, or it could be in any of the feature sessions. So we have sprint quali, a sprint, full quali, or regular quali, and then another feature race. So curious to see how it's gonna go here. We were talking earlier today about how tire management is going to be a key factor in tonight's races. What are your thoughts on that as we're about to go ahead and send this one to the track?
Um, Around Great Britain, it's very, very high tire wear, and you've got to make sure you get the strategy right, or you can lose positions and possibly even lose the win.
Yeah, tire management is going to be so crucial here for tonight because you have to really you got to really keep your tires in the window. And Silverstone is a very twisty track. There's a lot of sectors that can be really tough on the tires, especially with dirty air being a factor as well. I mean, going through Maggots, Beckett's, and going on to Chapel, that's the area where you're gonna really lose the most time and also the most tire wear. So we'll see how tonight goes, especially if we have some drivers here in the Div 5 range that are on a controller. As a controller player myself, tire wear around Maggots and Beckett's is basically a death sentence sometimes. So
Yeah, obviously, it doesn't help that the controller has increased tire wear anyway, but Great Britain is known as a track that can chew through tires incredibly fast and definitely will struggle.
indeed, yeah. I mean, tire wear is going to be just such a crucial thing here as we're about to go ahead and get some drivers out on track here at the moment. So we'll just have to see any predictions coming into tonight's race on who do you think is going to go ahead and take the win here. I mean, there are some pretty solid candidates, I would say. We're about to see Symphonic, who didn't have the greatest of times in the reserve race previously. We'll see if he can go ahead and have better fortunes here today in that Racing Bull. I mean, hey, the nice thing about the reserve program is that you do get some good practice around this circuit. Um, so yeah, really curious to see, especially for the drivers who were in the reserve program race a few nights ago. I believe the only other driver here who was a part of that, I want to say, was the Governor, who's currently P20 in the Williams. I think he was also in that reserve race. So once again, we'll see if that little bit of extra practice some of these drivers got beforehand really does help or not.
Yeah, I think today we'll also see Quiet Cake try and make a push. We've seen him at the top of the standings so far this year, and he didn't exactly have the best race in Brazil, so I think he'll be wanting to recover some of the lost points that he may have missed out on.
Indeed, I mean, consistency is what's going to win you that championship. So, right
Mm.
now, just taking a look at the Drivers' Championship right now for Div 5. We do have Dutch Verstappen currently on top of the standings. He has 131 points. Not too far off though is Ranieri, who is a currently he's actually listed as a reserve driver, funny enough, and he's got 107 points to his name. I don't actually, unless he's changed the username since we've last seen him, I don't see him on tonight's grid. So the next closest full-time driver is actually his teammate, the aforementioned Quiet Cake, who is currently 96 points. So Mercedes having a great run of form here in Div 3. Taking a look at the constructor standings as well. It is a tightly knit battle here between Ferrari and Mercedes. Not a lot of points separating them. It is 207 for Mercedes with only 198 points to Ferrari. So we have a full grid here tonight. So qualifying is going to be a huge, huge step, especially because you got double sets of points on offer because we have a sprint and we have a feature race. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun here.
I do believe that Ranieri was an ex-Ferrari driver that got moved up to Div 4 as it was believed he was too fast for Division 5. So
Well,
that's why he's listed as a reserve now and no longer races in Div 5.
which will be a bit of a massive hit to Ferrari. We do have a few drivers currently still on our lap. We were on for Deadly Fulla's first lap, as he was one of the first drivers to begin a lap, so we'll go ahead and return to him now as he's making his way down the hangar straight. He's going to go ahead and try to push it. Actually, Aardvark and Symphonic were a little bit ahead in terms of the laps, but we're seeing the first batch of lap times file on in. Symphonic, Aardvark, and Milano going ahead and setting lap times here. We'll see how the Williams fares. He will jump up into fourth, about a second off of pole pace, but granted, these are early laps here in Division 5. So once again, this track is going to get more rubbered in as the minutes tick on. So we're probably not going to see the best time of the sprint quality session, this fast yet furious sprint quality session, right until about the 3-minute mark, I'd say.
Obviously right now the track is just getting rubbered in. People are just setting out their bankers, making their aware with the track, and then they're going to come out towards the end on a new set of soft tires, go out and push and get hopefully a very, very good lap that'll put them where they are going to be on the starting grid for the sprint race.
Another interesting thing talking about the tire allocation here is the fact that we're going to see a good amount of drivers, including Dutch Verstappen, current championship leader, actually not taking the lead by a lot. It is only 0.08 of a second for provisional sprint pole here. Now, the thing to note is that with there being 2 quali sessions, as opposed to the regular singular short quali that we normally have here at Rush, it is indeed worth noting that tire allocation is going to be at least a point of strategy here, because as we can see here, a majority of these drivers have opted to set their lap time on mediums, so keeping an extra set of soft tires either for the sprint race or for the next qualifying session for the feature race. So once again, just extra bit of strategy coming into this weekend, something that these drivers haven't had to do all season long as of now, unless you've raced in the North American division, because North American division has had, I think, actually 2 sprints so far. So the North America / EU division already having some sprints, as Donut Grill is going to come across the line, and he will be up into 9th position. Pretty good qualifying spot for the Alpine for now, but once again, still on that set of medium tires.
We see here Iraq Lobster is going to be coming up to the line now. He hasn't set a time yet. He's on the mediums. He's going to come into the final chicane. He's going to get it nice and stops. Oh, he's going to have a bit of a slide coming out of the chicane there. Obviously pushing over the edge, trying to get these best lap times out right now. But he's on the mediums, so he hasn't got as much grip as he might be thinking.
Yeah, and that's always gonna be interesting as Iraq Lobster is gonna jump up into 15th right now. So he's a little under a second. He's actually the last driver to be within a second of Dutch Verstappen right now. We do have quite a few drivers going ahead and still going through the laps. The governor is going to go ahead and still go on his lap right now as we jump on board with the second Williams here tonight. He is making his way down to Cops, going into Maggots and Beckett's now. Now, strategy is going to be very interesting. We were talking with a few drivers earlier on, and potentially a two-stop might be on for some of these drivers, just considering the tire degradation here.
Obviously, it depends on how you drive. Some drivers that are going to be able to conserve those tires a lot more are going to be going for that one stop and trying to push those tires really long. But there's some drivers, and specifically drivers on the controllers, that are going to struggle with that tire wear, and they're going to have to go for the two stop. And I believe that the one stop is a little bit faster, but it's going to be a sacrifice you have to make if you're going to. It's going to be a result of how you drive.
Yeah, 100%. If you're a driver who is not exactly the greatest at managing your tires, me, but you're going to really struggle on this track because this is a track that really takes a ton out of the tires. And there are some drivers who can really manage the tires, but another thing that we do have to consider too, on top of this, is F7 makes a very valid point about the tire wear and about the two-stop being potentially even preferred, which I would probably honestly go for a two-stop here just because I know my tire management is not the greatest. But we're saying this with the mindset of it being dry. It is the UK, a country known for its propensity for rain. It does rain quite a lot here in the UK. And we'll see. F7 gonna go ahead. Or sorry, not F7. Rob McLaren. J Tuesday goes ahead and goes up to provisional pole by 86 hundredths of a second. That is a very good time there for the McLaren. I mean, he might have sprint pole here if. Actually, I think Dutch Verstappen doesn't have enough time. He's still in the pits, and he would have had to start his outlap by now if he wanted to get a lap in.
Yeah,
Well, actually, no. We'll see.
A lot of drivers seem to be pushing it and leaving it very late to come out here, but I think that Dutch Verstappen might just be able to make it. But we'll see how it goes.
There was some impeding noted by the onboard stewards. Do want to give a shout out to the onboards, Keeper, and I'm not sure if anyone else is doing onboards alongside Keeper, but massive shout out to the onboards. They make the stewards' lives a lot easier by noting incidents beforehand as SJ goes ahead and retires. He'll start from P11 if not lower. We'll see if anyone else can improve this time. We're going to ride on board with Dutch Verstappen, who is currently on an L lap. We'll see if he can actually make his lap stick. We'll keep an eye on a few other drivers as well. There is a yellow flag in Sector 3 as we see Dutch Verstappen going through the DRS zone. And I think the car just up ahead might be... J Tuesday's coming into the pits. So the yellow... Oh, there's a few other yellow flags that are going in. It's probably just drivers trying to get their tires warmed up and ready to go. We'll run on board with Dutch Verstappen. 30 seconds left on the clock. He will get another lap in. So we'll see if the current championship leader can go ahead and get a pole position here for the sprint race. You got to be really precise here. He's going to be on the soft set of tires, so he's got a really good chance here because his previous time was set on mediums now. As he's going to go ahead and make his way down the Wellington Straight, going into Brooklands as Husey goes ahead and tops the timing table, making it a provisional McLaren 1-2. Dutch Verstappen needs to find 0.4 of a second here as Daz comes up seemingly from nowhere, getting a provisional P2 here in the sprint. Only 7,300 off as we see him going through Cops and now making his way through Maggots and Beckett's, two of the most famous S's in motorsport at the moment. He's going to go ahead and he's got a lot of grip there. He's up by half a second. This is what he needs. He needs to just not lose it here in the final sector. Making the run down through Hanger Straight, going into Stowe. And now we go down to Vale. Now, this chicane here in between Vale and Club is so crucial for his lap time. If he can nail this, then he's pretty much got this pole position bagged. And Dutch Verstappen jumps into sprint pole by 0.3 of a second. And do you think anyone on this field can challenge that one, F7?
I don't know. I think that that's going to be our pole position. He's going 0.3 faster than Husey, and I think it's a little bit unbeatable from the grid.
We'll have to see. Yeah, Husey's not improving. He's down 21 seconds at least according to our timetable. We'll still see. He's the only one that can improve, as Husey is still making his way through. And yep, he's into the pit, so you are correct. That is our sprint pole position going to Dutch Verstappen. That's a very good pole time here from the Dutchman. But here's the thing. We do know that that it's one thing to get that good quali lap in, but it's another to keep up that consistent lead for 9 laps. So we'll see if he can pull it off here tonight.
Yeah, we have someone in the chat saying that that's a Div 4 pace. We see that there are currently there's 4 drivers that are with about 0.4 of him. So I think that just all comes down to how much practice someone could put in.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, practice is so crucial here in these races, especially as we get to crunch time for the season. Taking a look now at our sprint qualifying times here. It is Dutch Verstappen taking sprint pole, followed by Husey, Iraq Lobster, Aardvark, Daz, and Jay Tuesday setting the fastest time on the mediums, followed by Donut, Quiet Cake, FTR, and then we have Grido, Kumar, Deadly Fool, Symphonic, and then we have Asfala, the Governor, NDNV, Milano, Money Nabs, and then the other 2 drivers, which I did miss there right at the end. I do apologize, I ran out of time, but that is our sprint qualifying, and it is still pretty cloudy, but I can still see the sun a little bit, still peeking out there, so we're not getting the famous British rain here at the British Grand Prix. It's interesting to note that this track is actually getting an IRL sprint race next season, so as these drivers are setting up for the sprint, what do you make of that, F7?
We have a couple of races on the calendar already, and it'll be interesting to see if they add a new one. We've seen that Great Britain has brought some real life, and I wonder if it can bring that incredible.
Yeah, the sprint calendar for the 2026 Formula 1 season is pretty interesting, but we'll come back to that later because we have a sprint of our own to get ready for. And it is lights out and away we go here for the sprint race in Silverstone. We're going to see Husey trying to go ahead and get up the inside, but nowhere to go. We have drama down the backfield. Oh, massive damage. Massive damage. Moose having some very big damage on the front wing, and cars are just scattering all over the place right now. Ferrari is well and truly far in the backfield. Milano's down. Daz is way down the order. He is down 13 positions, and how that did not trigger a VSC at minimum is beyond me. A few other drivers jockeying for position right now, so quite a few cars with damage. We're only a half a lap in at the moment, and losing an end play here can be a crucial part of the race here, even if it is only a sprint, especially if it's a sprint, because, oh, we see Moe Nabs going way off track. He has substantial front wing damage, so that is not going to do you any favors here around Silverstone. And we're going to see Aardvark potentially try to get a move done onto Jay Tuesday. We'll see. And actually, that's a really interesting call. We're going to take a look at the tires here. Some drivers have opted for the hard tires here. A majority of the field has opted for the mediums. No soft runners here in the sprint, although granted I think the tire deck might be a bit too tough for the sprints to be viable here, but it's still I'm still really curious on seeing that we have some hard runners here. But actually both of the Alpines are the only drivers running the hards in this race, F7.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different sort of strategy. Some might say that the mediums are better, but some might say that the mediums might wear too fast for these 9 laps, and the Alpines have decided that they might wear too fast and they want to go for that quicker ending.
It's a really interesting call indeed. We'll just have to see if it comes to pass, and we'll see if there's anything that's really going to happen with it, because there's a crossover point, right? Just like we've talked about with the intermediates going to slicks, there's a crossover point where the intermediates will start to be better than the slicks. The same can be said for slick compounds, just in between compounds. There's a medium fall off cliff for those tires that there's a point where the mediums will start to really fall away, and then the hards will start to take advantage. But with 9 laps, I'm not sure if we'll actually see that crossover point fully reached. I mean, because surely you're going to want to go for more than 9 laps on a set of mediums in the feature race later on.
And Asif Al-Amadi, the Red Bull, round in the final chicane. He and has spun out.
We are having some technical difficulties with your mic there, F7, so hopefully we'll try to get that fixed. I know microphone problems they're a thing in esports. You'll see them pretty much in any tier of esports, but a thing I do want to draw attention to is that Iraq Lobster is actually out of, or just barely out of DRS range, or he's still barely within the range of DRS with Dutch Verstappen, so we'll see if he can keep it up. Husey, though, in the McLaren just behind, is going to want to try to ramp on the pressure and try to go ahead and try to close the gap, because this is a short race. You don't have to worry about pit stops. You can't really worry about pit strategy here, because in a sprint race there really is no pit strategy. You just need to go for it. And Husey does jump into second place. He had the DRS, and the DRS can be very strong down the hanger straight.
Indeed, it is a very good spot for overtaking, and the right-hander at the end of it is a very good spot for overtaking as well.
Indeed, yeah, it is a very good spot. Probably the best spot to get an overtake done on this track without the risk of sending an end plate into the grandstands. Because you can make some pretty aggressive moves into some of these corners, but they're usually not super safe. And you could eventually just knock off an end plate. And, I mean, that's pretty much your sprint race. Gonna go into a downward spiral as Dutch Verstappen has broken the DRS of Husey. So, that DRS battle is going to be no more. We'll watch these two kind of battle it out for position. But we do have some pretty good battles going up and down the grid. Daz is going to try to go ahead and make a bit of a recovery drive. He had a really good qualifying position, but he just was involved in a very early lap 1 incident that was noted by the onboards. So they're going to go ahead and give it a go, try to go ahead and close up the gap. He's got Milano just up ahead, who himself is trying to chase down the governor, as NDNV does have the fastest lap of the sprint race so far in that Ferrari. But he's currently down into P20. Not the start of the weekend that Ferrari would have wanted here in Div 5. once again, we'll just have to see if they can turn it around. That is the beauty, though, of having a sprint race weekend, as Deadly Fulla is now on a massive train here, pretty much from, it looks like it's about P12 all the way to P8 is roughly in a bit of a DRS train here. But like I was saying earlier, it is good that you do get another chance. You do get another race, essentially, because of it being a sprint weekend, and you'll get another qualifying session to kind of sort things out.
Yeah, I mean, some drivers would prefer different style of racing. Some drivers prefer the long strategies, and some drivers prefer the 9-lap dash. And it's very good that we get to see both in one weekend, and different types of drivers can show their types of skills.
Yeah, indeed, and I mean, honestly, it gives you a little bit of extra practice too, because you can also experiment with the setup a bit when you come to a sprint. If you have a setup that you kind of want to try and think, hey, this might work out, and then you can kind of see how it is over at least part of a stint. You'll be in competitive racing conditions, as we see. I believe that is, yeah, Kumar went wide, Fulla is through. But look at the, oh, we see yellows, we see a Haas, that is Milano, spun around. And it's been a tough one for half of the Haas garage. The other half doing pretty decent as we take a look at the positions gained here. Kumar is up 2 positions with the biggest mover in the sprint. Actually, now it is actually Flying Kiwi who is up into P15 at the moment. So good on him. And actually, something we're noting is with about 3 laps to go in the sprint, Dutch Verstappen must have made some kind of mistake, because now Husey is pretty much right back up in this battle, and it could be a faraway battle for the race win here.
Yeah, Dutch Verstappen's goal this race was probably to break the DRS early and try and run away, but he must have made a mistake, as that gap was about 1.5 seconds, and now Husey is within the DRS and is closing up rapidly.
The McLaren man seems to be in a really good spot here. He has been quick on the day, and we've seen that he has actually been able to go ahead and put a challenge up against Dutch Verstappen here as they go through Cops now. But oh, look, that might be a little bit of that dirty air that we're going to be seeing here, because dirty air is really going to give you a tough time of things, especially through this part of the track. A bit of a slide there through Beckett's as now they go into Chapel and down to Hanger Straight. He is still going to have DRS though on that McLaren, so he's going to close in that gap little by little. But once again, as we get down to the final 3 laps of the sprint race, just not quite enough there, F7.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the next 3 laps to make a move, but it was definitely, looked like he just kind of ran out of steam, maybe ran out of a bit of ERS, or just conserving it for the next couple of laps.
Which is a very good strategy indeed. I mean, it's very easy to kind of put too much stress on that battery and just run out of battery. And I mean, we're talking about Husey conserving battery. I mean, Iraqi Lobster, Aardvark, who has actually kept up with this pack pretty nicely on those hard tires. And also, Dutch Verstappen's probably also trying to be pretty gentle on that ERS system. Trying to go ahead and just, because F7, or, I don't know where I'm getting F7 from. You're here in the comments box with me. Husey, I mean, we're talking about Husey here, F7, where he's trying to manage his ERS. But, I mean, and we know that's going to be for an attack here within the final 3 laps. But you also got to think, Dutch Verstappen is also doing the same thing for defense. So he's going to be burning up some battery here on the defense. We'll see if he can make a move now. The McLaren's going to close. The McLaren's going to go for it. He's running out of road. He's getting a bit into the gravel. That was pushing him a bit wide there down Hanger Straight. We'll see if there's going to be a dive. And no, you can make a dive in this chicane, but it's not really advised as we begin the penultimate lap of the sprint race here.
Yeah. It looked like he went for a gap that was closing, and it seemed to have closed on him, and he just was forced slightly off track and lost a bit of pace and backed out, which was probably the smart thing to do in that situation.
Indeed, it is definitely the smart thing to do here, because I mean, if he kept pushing it, he could have taken himself and Dutch Verstappen out of the sprint race, and then that would have dropped to a battle between Iraq Lobster and Aardvark. So, I mean, you got to really think about it. There's still a good amount of racing left to go here in this championship. So we're just about at the halfway point of the championship, a little past that now. But, I mean, you got to be consistent. You have to put good results in consistently. If you slack off for any moment. And oh, Lobster going very wide there. And that's a little bit of the dirty air. He gets really close actually to the back of both F7. Wow, I need to fix that one. I mean, I know F7 did pretty good in this race here previously. But Husey, getting close to Husey and Lobster here. We'll see if Ivar can make a move up the inside. He's going to give it the old college try, and I think he's got it. The hard tire's kicking in, and he's going to get two. Oh, big contact. That's the big thing we're worrying about between himself and Verstappen earlier. But Aardvark getting a bit too aggressive on the chicane as we start the final lap of the sprint race here in Silverstone.
Yeah, and all of this battling caused them to drop the rest to... So now, Suzy is going to be on the defense instead of being on the tack like he would have wanted.
Indeed, yeah, now he's got to check his mirrors. And I mean, who knows if that did any kind of damage to either car. I don't see any damage on either car. I think they both got away with it. So both end plates are there. That's the biggest telltale sign that there would be damage, is if there's an end plate missing on one of these cars. Maybe floor damage could be a thing too, but yeah, these guys are battling it out tooth and nail, trying to close out this podium here in the sprint. It's not a ton of points, mind you, but it is still a very solid amount of points, as we see Milano having a bit of a turnaround there. But this field is actually pretty close now, as we are going ahead and wrapping up the sprint here. We're in the final half a lap of the sprint race here. Once we go ahead and make our way through Cop's corner. Oh, is he gonna try to move around Cop's?
Oh!
A big contact there. That's gonna be under review by the stewards. He will muscle Husey out of the way, and into P2 he goes. But that is definitely gonna be noted by the onboards there. As coming across to the checker flag now, Dutch Verstappen wins the Silverstone sprint race. And it is more points to his championship lead. What a drive from the Dutchman.
Yeah, he was able to break DRS early. The guys behind were able to catch up. They started battling, and then he just did the same again. He broke the DRS and just putting in consistent laps, being able to keep them out of it, and was able to walk home to an easy P1 in the sprint.
Indeed, yeah, it looked like it might have been under a little bit of pressure from Husey earlier on, but yeah, that's definitely going to be reviewed by the stewards. It's already been noted on the onboards. It will certainly go right to the stewards. They're going to have a bit of a busy night here, because I'm just going to go ahead and look through this here a bit. So, just going to go through chat here. There is a lap 1 incident noted. Then there was an incident in lap 7, 8, and 9. So, at least 4 incidents that will be reported, and potentially more later on after the race. And remember, this is only the sprint. We still have a full feature race to go through. So, let's go ahead and take a look at our sprint results here. It is Dutch Verstappen, followed by Aardvark, Iraq Lobster, Husey, Greedo, Minime. And then we have Quiet Cake, J2Z, Kumar, Fula, Symphonic, The Governor, Asif. That's going to be a tricky name to pronounce. And then we have Daz, Flying Kiwi, Dona Gorilla, Milano, Moe Nabs, and then the 2 Ferraris rounding out P19 to P20, with NDNV actually getting the fastest lap of the sprint race. So that is it for the sprint, but now we pretty much turn right back around and get into qualifying here, as we got about 17 minutes of qualifying here. Do you think we're going to see the same return to form for Dutch Verstappen, or do you think we might see another shot contender for pole position here?
I believe that we're probably going to see this Dutch Verstappen up the front again. We might see J2Z out there again. Shuzi was very fast in the sprint. We might see him up there as well. Um, yeah, Aardvark was fast in the sprint, and so was Iraq Lobster. So pretty much most people that were fast in the sprint or in the first qualifying, I think we're going to see up the front.
Pretty safe bet, and it's a bet I'm willing to go with. I mean, Dutch Verstappen, he was under a tad bit of pressure in the sprint, but never really got fully pressured here. As Greedo will be the first driver to jump out onto the track. And once again, you're probably going to see quite a few sets of soft tires here, pretty getting used up. Now, there's some drivers from the sprint quality who did not actually use that set of soft tires, so they'll have another set of softs to play with, so we'll see. We'll see if this shakes up the qualifying order a bit, because remember, J2Z was the fastest driver in Q1, or in the sprint quality, on that medium set, so we'll see. And it wasn't until he swapped to the softs that we saw Dutch Verstappen take pole.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, as obviously he was saving a set for this qualifying, but in that sprint qualifying we saw Dutch Verstappen was 3/10 ahead of everyone else. So I think that it's going to be tough to break into that P1 spot if he's going to be putting in another time like that.
Indeed, and now pretty much the entire field is going to have their best qualifying lap set on that soft tire. So you know it's going to be tough out there to really keep that position, but I mean, Dutch Verstappen, he does have a pretty healthy lead in this Drivers' Championship for a good reason. He has been a very consistent driver, a very strong force here in Division 5, and honestly, considering his form around here today, I don't really see much change coming away. But if you've been around for Rush Racing League for any amount of time, you will know that it is a very, very, very competitive league, and things can pretty much change at the drop of a hat. A late race safety car could change things. We could see there's so many factors that could affect one of these races, and we see things change quite often here at Rush. We've seen shock drivers getting eliminated, and actually, if you were with us a few days ago for the North American race that happened in Mexico City, we actually had the championship leader getting taken out in Q2. So, I mean, we've seen some pretty unexpected things happen as Greedo runs a bit wide and invalidates his lap. Will jump over to Milano. Interesting, because normally it's dirty air that causes that type of invalidation around this track.
Yeah, it can also be caused by pushing a little bit too hard, turning in maybe a little bit too late, or even getting it up on that curb. But I think that the highest cause of a running wide like that is certainly the dirty air at this track. It is incredibly difficult to deal with.
Yeah, dirty air on this track is just it's not favorable. I mean, dirty air is not favorable really at any track, but in this track in particular, it can be pretty brutal at times, especially if you're going through Maggots and Beckett's. With Milano jumping up to P1, setting the initial fastest lap of the session, setting the first lap of this feature race quali. And we'll see who is going to go ahead and have an answer to that. I want to say it was actually like a 1:27.3 was roughly the fastest time. But we're seeing times pretty close to Div 4, as it was noted earlier in the Twitch chat.
I believe that pole in SQ1 was a 26.4. So
okay, so I was about a second off, but still, yeah, I mean, high 120s or low 126. I mean, regardless, it is still extremely close to Div 4 times here.
Yeah, there's not much margin between times at a track like this. But if I think that if Dutch Verstappen is able to together another lap like he did in sprint quali, this race is his to, or this P1 is his to take in this qualifying session.
If you do good in qualifying, there's a pretty good chance you can do good in the race too. But here's the thing that is going to add a little bit of extra complexity to this is just the variety of pit strategies we might see here, because we might see some drivers going for the one stop, some drivers going for the two stop. Um, Weather might be a factor, safety cars might be a factor that can, I mean, anything can happen that can really shake this entire race up. We'll see if Deli Fuller can go ahead and give it his all here. If he can go ahead and jump up to the top of the times, he does. A 127.084, knocking on the door of a 126. We'll see about his Williams teammate, who jumps up into fourth position with a 127.531. Good stuff there from SJ.
Yeah, looks like the Williams is maybe strong in this race. Obviously, I don't think they did the absolute best in the sprint. Obviously, I can't remember. I don't have the best memory. But I think that they'll be looking. A lot of the drivers that didn't do the best in the sprint will be probably looking at this feature race and going, this is my redemption shot. This is my chance to show that I can actually do this track very well.
Yeah, indeed. Because, I mean, that's the nice thing about the sprint weekend, is why I do like the sprint weekends from a racing perspective, is that it gives you a chance to kind of have a reset, like, okay, well, that didn't work. You could have that kind of mentality from the sprint, and then you can kind of analyze it a little bit and say, like, you know what? I'm about to give it another go at this track, so I can see where I went wrong and how I can go ahead and do better in the feature race when there's more points on the line. And that's another beauty of the reserve races as well, because the reserve program had a sprint at this exact track. So for those of you who don't know, on Thursday nights we do run a reserve program where you'll see drivers from all 6 of our divisions in Oceania go ahead and compete. No points on the line. It is just a race to kind of show, basically kind of to put out like your best foot forward in case you want to jump on board with a new team in the near future or potentially for next season, because our second silly season is coming up here pretty shortly. So we'll see how that kind of plays, but it's also a really good opportunity for drivers in a race that's not for points, as we see actually a Sauber knock out a distance marker there, and I believe that might have been, yeah, that was definitely Daz, as Iraq Lobster jumps up into third. So, but it's a good way for these drivers to get some practice, and some of these drivers in tonight's race have definitely gotten that practice in.
He jumped to the top of the times tables. The professional P1 right now with a 26.7. As Donut River disconnects, I will get him in.
And while he's doing that, let's go in and talk a little bit about the overalls, because the overalls from last week are now here, and Aston Martin have now jumped up into the lead of the overalls. They have 904 points, which, fun fact, 904 is the area code of the Jacksonville Jaguars in the United States. So there's a little bit of a history fun fact for you. As looks like Iraq Lobster had a bit of a moment there, but looks like everything is a-okay for him. So we'll just have to see how everything does continue to play out. But they have jumped Ferrari, who weren't in the best of standings previously, coming from Brazil, but now Aston Martin is just ahead of Ferrari. Ferrari on 893 points, Mercedes on 887, Sauber on 869 points, It was not a nice tumble down the order. They've dropped 3 positions after Brazil. And then we have Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, Williams, VCarb, and then Haas. Haas is a team that really needs some points because they are over 100 points behind the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls squad in the overalls. And for those of you who may be new here to Rush Racing, well, first of all, welcome and thank you guys so much for tuning on in. We hope you enjoy your stay here. So the overalls is basically all of our Oceania divisions combined. So the scores from Div 1 through Div 6 combined together, and that's how we have our overalls here. So, and actually Quiet Cake has a quiet resurgence here. He is now up into P3, only 2.3 tenths off of the McLarens here.
Yeah, we saw he didn't have exactly the best sprint, so I think he'll be looking at this feature race to recover some of the points he's lost, and obviously his teammate and his rival, you could say, in the Drivers' Championship got that win, so he'll be looking to regain a lot of those points.
Indeed, and Dutch Verstappen is actually only 1,000th of a second ahead of his teammate here, so not as quick on the opening laps as he was for a sprint quali, but once again, there's still a good amount of qualifying left to go. A team that is really going to want to go ahead and get a big resurgence here tonight is Ferrari, because Ferrari they were pretty much doing really strong in the overalls for quite some time, but now they're pretty much looking right at the back of Aston Martin. They want to take that spot because they can take it, but the sprint performance was definitely nothing to write home about. Locking out the back row is definitely not something that Ferrari will want to remember, especially with how tight margins are here in the overalls.
Yeah. Locking out the back row, not what they wanted, but I believe a lot of what happened in that sprint race could have been affected by that big lap one incident. So they'll be looking to bounce back and get some very, very good points in this race now.
Yeah, because I mean, it's good they got pace because NDNV, he did get the fastest lap in the sprint race, although he has invalidated his quali lap this time around, but his teammates just up the road ahead of him is still going strong. We'll see if he can go ahead and crack into the 126s, and we've seen a few drivers jump up that order. It's only good for 14th here, F7, so not exactly their greatest lap here for the Tifosi.
No. And I think that NDNV also invalidated, so not what they were looking for, and looking to bounce back. Not the best first runs, but I think they'll be going back into the pits, getting on that new set and coming straight back out to set their final runs.
Yeah, because we're just about to actually approach that window for the final runs. Yeah, we got about 4.5 minutes left to go here in qualifying. We're going to ride on board a little bit with Milano, who didn't have the greatest of sprint races either, so we'll see if we can see an improvement here from the Haas. Haas is probably the team that, I would argue they need the points more than anybody else on this grid right now, just considering how far they are behind in the overalls. I mean, being over 100 points back, just about 200 points back off of P9 Williams, isn't exactly how these drivers would have wanted the first half of their season to go, more than likely.
No, they do not want that. I believe they did also get a new principal at the last of the season, so I think he made some changes, and I think he may be also looking to make some changes coming into the next one.
Yeah, because we do have another silly season coming up here in about 2 rounds or so, I believe. I think it's right off the end of round 12. We have a week break for silly season, so TPs can go ahead and do a little bit of shopping. They can see who's on the market, who's looking to make a move, and or maybe what reserve drivers are looking really promising here. Because I mean, in the realm of esports, you're gonna always see. Well, actually, any sport you watch is always going to have some very consistent changes. Whether you watch football, American football, baseball, um, motor racing, even esports. I mean, we've seen a lot of the F1 esports drivers make some changes. Otis Lawrence, one is the main one I can think of off the top of my head. He moved from Aston Martin to Alpine. But, I mean, we saw quite a few changes in the last silly season as well here at Rush Racing League. So, once again, silly season can really shake things up. I mean, and also sometimes for these drivers, a change of scene can just be exactly what you need here.
Yeah, some drivers may a little bit of change or a little bit of change in that team dynamic is exactly what they're looking for, and they're able to unlock their full potential. Maybe they'll get help with practice, get help with their setups, help with more engineering. Some teams may offer a little bit more than others, but sometimes that small little bit of change as to what they're seeing on the track is exactly what they need to make that shift.
One of the most recent examples that comes to mind is in Division 4. In the beginning parts of the season, Mercedes had Dynasty Sparrow, who has been around Rush Racing League for quite some time. He is a veteran face here in the league, but at Mercedes, it just wasn't really clicking with him. I mean, we saw that really unfortunate moment where, I mean, I remember it. Oh, and we have Husey just a bit off the road there, but I think it was just getting out of the way. He is on LF after all, so I think it is all good. But anyways, but Dynasty Sparrow was having a torrid time of things at Mercedes to kind of start the season. I mean, Monaco was probably the low life of his, or the low light of his entire time here at Rush. He was 8 laps down on Monaco with his team principal wanting him to retire, but he stuck it on through. Didn't get any points, and it was just a rough time for him there at Mercedes. But then silly season comes around. He swaps over to Aston, and then gets a podium pretty much straight out of the gate. So sometimes the change of scenery is exactly what you need. But now, with 20 seconds left on the clock, we're going to see if we can see a change in who's going to start this race from P1 here, F7.
Yeah, we see everyone right now except for Milano Gaming. Milano, I don't know how to say that name. Milano is out on track. He stayed in the pits. But interesting to see what's going to happen here.
The timer is at 0, so now all these drivers are going to go ahead and just try to put in their best laps. As actually, Husey is in a pretty good spot. He's getting a good tow there, but he's just got to make sure that the dirty air doesn't catch up with him. So we'll see. He is catching the car up ahead, which I believe is a Williams. So the dirty air is going to be affecting him a bit, but he is catching up to the back. He is up by 0.2 of a second there. So we're going to see if he's going to go ahead and try to get close. He's closer to the Williams, but with that dirty air. Oh, and he invalidates it right there at the end. Dirty air being a bit too much. NDNV jumping up to provisional pole. Iraq Lobster taking provisional pole right after him. Can we see Aardvark do anything? We're seeing drivers finishing their qual. Donut Gorilla, Dutch Verstappen. Is it going to be Aardvark this time? No, not quite. Dutch Verstappen putting in a lap when he needed to. But what about Jay Toozy? He's into the pits as well. So there's a few drivers who could still take it away. It's not going to be his teammate. His teammate did approve, but only up to 9th. What about Daz? Does Daz have anything? He's got a validation, so that is a nope. But once again, like you predicted earlier on, F7, Dutch Verstappen taking pole position yet again here at Silverstone.
Yeah, he had that incredibly strong time in sprint qualifying, and he's gone out there in the actual qualifying and set almost an identical time. So not only is he fast, but he's consistently fast.
And consistency is what's going to win you that championship. He is in the championship lead for a reason. And it was a very, very well done lap there from the Mercedes man. We'll see if he can avoid the drama, get the strategy calls right, and we'll see if he can carry this performance on to the feature race. But what a pole position it was there from the Dutchman.
Indeed. A very, very strong time for him.
As we go to get settled here, we're going to go to run through quality results here. Just to kind of tell you guys how quality pretty much went down and who is starting from what position in the Grand Prix. So Dutch Verstappen leads from Aardvark and Dona Alpine locking in P2 and P3. That's a good result for them. And then it is Iraq Lobster, NDNV, Husey, J2Z, Garrido, Zamphonic, Quiet Cake, the Governor, Kumar, Daz, Deadly Fulla, Minmeh, and then Asif, Moinabs, Milano, Flying Kiwi, and then Moose having a bit of an unfortunate time in that Ferrari. Not a day that he wants to remember, but Ferrari, they do have a driver in the upper reaches of the points, so we'll see if that can bring the Tifosi some joy here today.
Yes, and as we set the grid, it seems to be a little bit more overcast than that sprint race. I wonder if maybe towards the end of this actual race, some rain might be kicking in.
I was actually just about to ask you about that, F7. I was actually going to ask for your prediction on if we're going to see rain and all. It does look a bit cloudier than normal. It's not the worst we've seen it here at Silverstone in previous seasons, but we do know that rain can be a threat here. In Great Britain, it almost always is. I mean, look at the real life Silverstone Grand Prix. It was pretty wet affected and actually led to Nico Hulkenberg getting his first ever podium in Formula One. Probably my favorite podium of the season from any driver, but we're going to see who's going to be fighting for the podium here in Rush Racing League Division number 5. The first sprint race of the season for this division. And we're going to see who can go ahead and bring it around. The home of British Motor Racing. We see there's 5 red lights going up on the gantry. And it's lights out and away we go here for the British Grand Prix. And we're seeing a few drivers jockeying for position. It looks like nobody's getting out of store this time. A few drivers running a tad wide in the background, but I think we have made it through the first couple of corners incident free. Maybe a little bit of wheel banging potentially, but it is a much cleaner start, and I jinx it. Look at this. It is Aardvark and Dutch Verstappen getting into a bit of a scuffle. Another scuffle with the other Mercedes there in the back. And the driver who was in pole position is now down into 8th, making 8th now, because he had to back out of that attempt from Aardvark in the Alpine.
And it looks like Aardvark may have some front wing and missing end plate on the right side as... Oh, no, that might have been just a glitch. Never mind. But yes, it looks like Aardvark is missing his end plate on the right side.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that was a bit of a risky one. We've seen a good amount of... I mean, we saw drama in the first lap, but in actually both the sprint and the feature race now, so very unfortunate there. If you're Dutch Verstappen, you're still crucially ahead of your teammate, though, so crucially ahead of his primary title rival here in Div 5 for the championship, so you know who else this really helps? This helps Aston Martin out quite a bit, because Aston Martin they're already in a pretty good spot to pull away from Ferrari here today, but they're in an even better spot now because you get more points for P2 than he would have for P4. So, I mean, that was definitely something that really benefited Iraq Lobster here.
Yeah, but we see his teammate is currently down there battling for the final position. It looks like he's struggling because he just got overtaken and is now already 2 seconds behind Minmay. So I'm not sure what's happening there, but see what happens.
He doesn't have any damage that we can see. Must have been a bit of a spin or some sort of incident there, but we're going to jump back towards the front of the field as we're on lap 2 out of 26 here around Silverstone. We're about to go ahead and head to the second DRS zone. After Magnets, Beckett's, and Chapel, we're going down the hanger straight. We're going to see the DRS flap open up on the Aston Martin. He's going to try to close that gap up. He will bit by bit. It is a pretty strong DRS zone there down the hanger straight. It's almost like you're about to get ready for a takeoff, but you're just trying to take a position off the guy up front. We'll see if Iraq Lobster could pull out a win here today, because here's the thing too. You know, we saw rapid pace from him here in a sprint race. Dutch Verstappen really isn't moving much of anywhere.
Yeah, he's currently down in that P8 position. Seems to be slightly struggling after that lap 1 incident. But he's holding steady. He's keeping the DRS to Aardvark. Looks like he's just trying to keep up with the guys in front of him right now. He might be under pressure here though from Deadly Fuller. He's right in behind him. The gap's about a tenth or so, but looks like Deadly Fuller's just happy to stay behind for now and let this race go along a little bit more.
He might realize that his race isn't particularly with the Mercedes, but if an opportunity arises, then he is certainly not going to pass up the opportunity to get one on the championship leader. We'll see if Deadly Fuller can try to capitalize here as we continue on through this British Grand Prix. But if he's not careful, he's going to have a good amount of pressure from Symphonic here, because Symphonic is pretty close. He's closer to Fuller than Fuller is to Verstappen just up the road. So he's got the DRS down the hanger straight. So does Iraq Lobster. He's going to close the gap, but had a bit of a wide moment there coming out of Vale. So we'll see if he can close it in. He will temporarily, but the gap is going to go ahead and flow back out to about half a second.
Yeah, looks like everyone right now is kind of racing their own race, settling in. It's now lap 4. Now is when drivers are going to start to make these moves and start to progress up the field. Those first 2 laps can appear to be a little bit of chaos, and their whole goal will just be to survive. Now it's time to start making their way up the field. If you're Dutch Verstappen or if you're Iraq Lobster, it's just to get past Donut Gorilla and try and make a gap.
100% their F7, but what we do know is that the McLaren drivers are not going to make this easy for Lobster. As we saw the pace of the McLarens coming into the end of the sprint, they were definitely on fire. They're definitely probably the best overall team in Div 5 here today. Because, I mean, they've been super consistent. They've been pretty much right next to each other this entire time. And now, going down the hanger straight, there's a lot of DRS. We'll see if there's going to be moves made. Nope. The tricky thing about trying to pass somebody who is in DRS range is that if the car in front of you also has DRS, then you're pretty much going nowhere, especially in these equal performance cars. So there's no performance difference between any of these machines. So pretty much the DRS strength is going to be the same, unlike if you were to play career mode or play without the equal performance if you're playing on realistic performance. But since these cars are the same spec, running both cars with DRS, it's not going to make things easy for a pass.
In these equal performance cars, the DRS will be aided by the ERS. So a lot of these drivers, when they're going for a move on someone else with DRS, they'll be hoping that they have more ERS than the person in front of them. So ERS is a big game changer in these equal performance cars.
100%. So if you're unfamiliar with ERS, it is the energy recovery system, or also known as kind of the hybrid system on modern day Formula 1 cars. the battery has several different settings here. You can run it at none if you want to try to conserve your battery. You can run it at medium for a bit of a balanced approach, and then you can also run it to overtake or hot lap, which will pretty much activate the battery as we see he's trying to go up the inside of Greedo. This is NDNV trying to get a position here, trying to make Ferrari's day a little bit better by getting some good points here in the feature. Not quite enough to get around the Red Bull as Dutch Verstappen is just behind in his Mercedes. The championship leader trying to go ahead and make ends meet here and try to claw back some positions. Damage limitation is going to be the name of his game here today.
Yeah. We see that Greedo has fallen off of the back of Jay Tuesday and is now NDNV is able to get the overtake done before the corner with the DRS, sorry. But this is not what these two would want, as they would want to still be battling with the top four, the two McLarens, Iraq Lobster and Donut Gorilla.
But we saw it in the sprint earlier where if two cars battle quite a bit, it can bring some other cars into a battle to kind of, make things a bit spicier. So maybe, these top four cars are all within DRS range of each other. So, Lobster could battle with Donut or Husey. Husey could battle with Lobster or his teammates. And you pretty much have four cars all within DRS range, which can make things really tricky, and somebody might make a mistake, and then that brings pretty much the rest of the field back, and that brings NDNV back into this fight. So once again, we are watching as these drivers tackle the British Grand Prix circuit. We'll see who can go ahead and get it going and who can go ahead and make the most of it. But right now, we are expecting it. We're expecting probably a majority of the drivers to try to make a one-stop happen, but there are going to be a few drivers attempting to make the two-stop work. So pit strategy is going to be very interesting this race. My prediction is it'll probably be around I'm going to say lap 10 is probably the earliest you'll want to try to pit in for these, to get rid of these mediums, but once again, dirty air can affect it, and especially around this track, tire wear is just such a crucial element of racing. And Aardvark gets the first penalty of the day. It is a 3-second track limit violation here in the feature race, and that will be added onto his time after the race. You cannot serve that in the pits. You might be able to get it removed by the stewards, but most times that is pretty much a slam dunk, as we do have a car off in the backfield here. I believe it is, actually we have a few cars coming into the pit, so looks like my pit prediction is wrong. So if you're making the two-stop, then you're coming in this lap apparently, as we see quite a few drivers making their way into the pits.
Yeah, some drivers, and like I said earlier, specifically these controller drivers will be going for this two-stop, and will be going for this earlier stop to get off of these tires.
Which may help them out. It may hinder them short term, but it'll help them out long term. But the interesting thing is that Red Bull was opting for a double stack. So that's a bit of an interesting call. We'll jump back up to the front. Things have spread out a bit more towards the front, but still all within DRS range of each other, and that's just kind of the natural ebb and flow. Now, granted, we don't know exactly, you might have an idea, but we don't know exactly if these drivers are on a controller or on a keyboard. So, if you are any of these top four drivers, what lap would you want to pit in to get rid of these mediums?
I think our top kind of four drivers right now will be looking to pit around lap 10 to about lap 12 to get off of these mediums if they're going for a one stop. I think that's about as far as possible you can push them, and then when to get onto those hards and kind of go to the end and look to keep those till the end.
Yeah, it's probably a good call, honestly. Because, I mean, the sprint race was 9 laps, and we were seeing some drivers kind of already struggling on the medium tires and the hard tires. We're starting to really come into their own, as noted by the Alpine drivers, being the only drivers to start on the hard tire. So we might see a Alpine masterclass here after all. We might have seen a beautiful strategy played out here by the French squad. So we'll see. We'll see how Donut Gorilla can go ahead and hold on. He does have Iraq Lobster pretty close behind him, but he's been able to hold him off pretty well. And now they're going through an area where the dirty air is going to really start to hurt Iraq Lobster. And also, dirty air affects the tires pretty heavily. So it could be pretty crucial for Iraq Lobster to try to keep his tires pretty much from falling apart despite the dirty air. We'll see if he can make a move this time around. Nope, not enough real estate. The gap was actually the opposite problem. There's a bit too much real estate in between these drivers.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers are going to be utilizing these gaps they can have to be able to just not push as hard as possible to stay in front. I mean, we see a lot of the drop drivers are separated by roughly that 5 to 8/10 range, so they're not worried about someone just making a last minute dive down there inside, as that can cause a pretty big collision.
Not just that, it can also send a post-race penalty your way. And if you get too many penalty points, you'll be up for a race ban, which, especially if you're in a title fight, will really hurt things. It is lap 10 here. It is where we are expecting some pit stops to happen for some of these drivers opting for the 2-stop. If these drivers aren't on 2-stop, they'll try to maybe get to lap 13 or so. Maybe 14 before swapping, but I don't see any later than 13, honestly. I think we're probably going to see... And actually, it might be lap 11, potentially, for the drivers trying to make a one-stop work here around Silverstone. Oh, and that's a big one. Husey getting a 3-second time penalty for track limit violations. We also saw the Flying Kiwi got one earlier on. He got one in the sprint race as well. So, I mean, it is pretty easy to get track limit violations here, because we've seen quite a few laps invalidated in quali. And the same thing that will invalidate laps in quali will also give you penalties here in the Grand Prix.
Yeah. As we see, Donut Gorilla has chosen to make the choice and has dived into the pits, and so is Jutsi and Dutch Verstappen and Aardvark and Symphonic. A lot of these drivers now are choosing to make this pit stop.
Interesting stuff here. I mean, strategy is probably one of my favorite things about motorsports. I love seeing the different tire strategies that can come into play, especially across series. And it's interesting to see some of these drivers going ahead and trying the earlier stop, and other drivers just trying to stick it out, because Iraq Lobster does have, he's got about a 1-second gap, so he's out of DRS range now from Husey, even if barely, but now he's back in DRS range. But I mean, we'll see, because these drivers are probably coming in this lap. The only driver who I don't think is going to come in this lap or any lap soon is probably going to be Daz. Because Daz is still on that hard compound tire, and those hard compounds could probably go, I'd say probably to about lap 16, 17 maybe, before we see a pit stop from him. But once again, anything can happen. If there's a safety car that comes out, you can bet your bottom dollar that everybody's going to jump into the pits for a new set of wheels.
Oh, that's another big one. Husey has gotten a 10-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane.
Ooh, the McLaren driver. His week was looking so good but then it's just kind of fallen away from him here in the feature. Oh, that is definitely something you do not want to have as somebody who's contending for a podium here in this race. Now, he is going to have to serve that if he does take another pit stop. So, I mean, you're pretty much now locked into the one stop, which you did switch to a set of hard tires. You have to use 2 separate compounds of tires unless the track is wet enough for intermediates or wets. So, I mean, he will have fulfilled that requirement, but now you're pretty much locked into the 2 stop because unlike the 3 second, you can serve that 10 second in the pits, but yeah, I mean, either you serve it in the pits or it gets added onto your race at the end. So, you gotta really pick your poison when it comes to that type of thing. And I think he's just gonna have to go ahead and bite the bullet. Few drivers still out though. Greedo pitted in a little bit earlier. He's up in the second actually. So he actually did get a pretty good undercut onto Gorilla. But he is on 3-lap older hard tires. We'll see if they hold up. Or we'll see if Donut Gorilla can really capitalize on the lap 1 incident that happened earlier on between Dutch Verstappen and Aardvark, his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, he has made the choice. He's gone 3 laps earlier than most people, and he's gotten the undercut done on Donut Gorilla. But the crucial thing is his tires are 3 laps older, so that he's gonna definitely feel that difference when it comes to the later stages of this race.
Especially as we're in the early 20s of this Grand Prix. The early 20s, we're going to really start seeing the tires just start falling off of the car here. As we're about halfway through this race here. Oh, Flying Kiwi is out, but he retired in the pits. The yellow flag will be nothing more than a minor jump scare. And then we'll still be racing here. No safety car, no VSC. The rule is that if you don't retire from a crash, you have to retire in the pits or else it's a massive penalty for retiring on track. Cause that has that history of bugging out the game. Sometimes even crashing on track will bug out the game. I remember last season with XD Lamb. It was round 4 at Bahrain where his car had a bit of an issue and his car was actually just stuck in the middle of a chicane, so causing a big code round moment for everybody. And we had probably one of the longer red flags from that season, but that's a pretty long run here going through and on the fresher tires. Oh, they're still fighting it out. They're still going to give it a go, still going to duke it out. But in the end, Donut Gorilla charging into what is provisionally the lead, or what is the net race lead, as Daz still needs to pit here. What a pass there from the Alpine to take back that lead.
Yes, incredible. It would be it's going to be very, very crucial for him, as Donut Gorilla is going to have these fresher tires than him. He does not want to get caught stuck behind Greedo and let Lobster just catch up, as now Lobster is also going to have to get past Greedo and it's going to use up those tires.
It is indeed, yeah, and I mean, that dirty air is going to really start hurting on his tires. But he might have done a really good job of undercutting Lobster, though, because he did jump Lobster, who is now pretty much got the 2 McLarens right there ready to go ahead and give him a taste of papaya rules here. As we go to make our way in lap 14, we're going into Cops now. This beautiful helicopter shot we're seeing here of these cars making their way through this very historic and iconic British circuit. One of the inaugural, I think it is actually the inaugural track that Formula One has raced on. It's been on the calendar pretty much almost every single year of the Formula One World Championship's existence, as we see NDNV getting a bit wide, a bit further back, but I mean, right now NDNV is having a much better time of things as our Rocky Lobster and Greedo going side by side. We see Greedo going up over the curbs. The sausage curbs can really unsettle your car, and it can ultimately ruin your race if you take them a bit too hard.
Yeah, it can definitely.
Yeah, I mean, just taking a look at chat, I mean, the tires are really going to start falling away from some of these drivers now. And yeah, I mean, some of the tires are going to really start falling away towards the end of the race. And now, Greedo is just dropping like a stone here, just falling way down the order. I mean, he was in P2 for a while, got pretty much swallowed up by Donut, and then subsequently Iraq Lobster. Now he's about to be overtaken by both of the McLarens here, who are both on fresher tires than the Red Bull just up ahead. And I mean, yeah, this could really, really, and I mean really make life difficult for the Red Bull here.
Yeah, with these two McLarens right behind him, it's not what he wants to see. These two papaya cars are going to be all in his mirror, and he's going to have to either want to keep them behind, or he's going to have to let them through as they're on the much, much fresher tires.
We'll see. And it looks like he's going to choose to defend rather than just give up the position. But at this point, considering that those tires really seeming to fall off a cliff here, which is kind of early for these tires to really start falling off. But granted, I mean, you have Husey on 4-lap fresher tires, and that's usually going to be a pretty good indicator. And also, the McLaren cars have been really quick here all week. They've been quick here at Silverstone pretty much the entire time. Now Husey in DRS range, but Greedo has DRS range too, so it's not going to be as control. He's going to go for a move. He's going for a move into Brooklyn's, but there is nowhere for that move to land. He is still at P5, but one attempt there from Husey.
Yeah. Now these two are going to have to save their battery, as they both run a little bit wide there. As they're going to come through Maggots and Beckett's, they're going to save their battery for the hangar straight. It'll be interesting to see if Husey will be able to get this move done here, or if he's going to have to wait even longer to get it done.
We will see. Just up the road, he's got DRS. Is he going to go for the move now? Too much real estate in between these drivers. You ultimately want to be about 0.3 of a second before you hit the DRS line. And that's going to make your day a lot easier in trying to get these overtakes done. You may be able to do it about 0.4 of a second, but you really got burned some battery in that process. So, once again, you got to really pick your battles here.
Yes, as we see Daz has come into the pits off of those 16-lap hards. He's now going to be switching to the mediums, and is going to be going, I think, about 9 laps. As Kumar gets a 10-second penalty speeding into the pit lane.
Ooh, yeah, that speeding in the pit lane penalty is a brutal one. And I mean, honestly, especially in this game too, with F125, I remember back in F124, we almost never really saw that speeding in the pit lane penalty. But now with 25, it feels like we see it pretty much every single race. Somebody gets hit with that penalty. 9 times out of 10. And I mean, it might even come to a point where there's a whole championship decided by the 10-second penalty. So it's tricky. It's probably the most brutal penalty in the entire game. But it just happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to pretty much every driver at some point or another.
It appears as though last game, going into the pit lane, it's a lot easier to slow down, but on 2025 now, I mean F1 25, it gets a lot more difficult for some reason. It's almost like they've changed the way that the braking works.
I mean, considering the Formula 2 cars in this game, where you have to brake significantly earlier in those cars compared to 24, I mean, there's a lot of things that were changed from 24 to 25. At least from what I can feel. Tire wear is a big one. Tire wear is massive on both wheel and pad. And the F2 cars, you do have to brake pretty dang early. So, and speaking of F2, I don't know about the schedule for F2 yet, but There has been a expression of interest put out for the F2 series returning to Rush Racing League. So that could be a pretty fun one. Actually, the first race ever commentated for Rush Racing League was an F2 race. It was F2 Las Vegas. It was myself and Squash Josh in the commentary booth that night. And that was the first time I've ever commentated for Rush Racing. So a bit of a nostalgic series for me. And I'm glad to see Rush bringing it back.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of people wanted it, and backed by popular demand, they brought it back, and it looks like everybody, oh, a lot of people want to be racing. As VX Greedo has come into the pits, obviously he's feeling those tires getting a little bit worn, and they are 10 laps old, so he's going to be going for a 2-stop.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because he's going to throw in the mediums. There's no way the mediums are going to get to the end here. You think? Actually, maybe. They're going to be screaming.
Yes, they're going to be definitely struggling, but I think it is about 6 laps now, so he should be able to make it.
It's about 6 or 7 laps, give or take. I think it's more on the side of 7, roughly. So, yeah, I mean, between 6 and 7 laps, they'll make it. As Kumar gets the fastest lap on the session, a driver who's just been quietly having a good race here is just NDNV. I mean, considering the penalties, he will jump up into 4th, and potentially he's got potential of a podium here tonight. So we'll see if the Ferrari can go from 0 to hero here at Silverstone. Because remember, they pretty much locked out P19 and P20 in the sprint, and now they're on track for a podium. As we see Husey. Now here's the question that I want to pose to you, F7, is do you think we'll see a bit of a driver swap happening here between J2Z and Husey? Because it's kind of a weird one, because Husey does look like the quicker car on track, but he's also got 13 seconds worth of penalties. So do you think a team order to swap those cars would be even beneficial to them right now, or would you just keep them as is?
I think for now, we see that Husey has got a little bit more pace. I think what I would do is kind of just keep it like it is. But if they're not able to get past Iraq Lobster, then I think that it's probably smarter to swap them around. So J2Z has a shot at getting past Iraq Lobster.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. Once again, I mean, I know they got their own strategy in mind. They got their own way of doing things, papaya rules and all that. Although I think people like the Rush Racing papaya rules a lot more than the IRL papaya rules. Just from what I have heard. Actually, to be fair, I don't think. I mean, you could probably answer this better than I could, F7, but I don't think actually Rush McLaren has true papaya rules aside from race your teammate clean. And speaking of racing, we got NDNV thinking about a move on to J2Z now. So the Ferrari looking to jump into what is essentially a net podium here, as he's going to go ahead and still try to keep that gap close to J2Z. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we didn't even really see much of NDNV's race, but now he's suddenly here ready to fight for a podium.
I think he's just been quietly putting in the laps, getting closer and closer and closer, and now he has a shot at the podium, as we know that Husey in front has that 13-second penalty. So J2Z will jump up into P3. If he can get past him, he could get it.
Speaking of drivers trying to get past others, it looked like we were about to see Husey shake for a move there on to Iraq Lobster just up the road ahead. We'll see as we're going to continue on. We are on lap 21 out of 26. 6 laps to go here. Less than a sprint left to go. The clouds are thick, but the rain is not existent, so I think these drivers are going to stick it out on the slicks all the way to the end, and these guys are going to fight pretty much for every single millimeter on this track. They are closing up to Donut ever so slightly, but will it be enough to really push for a fight here towards the end? Taking a look now back at the tire life, there isn't really much of a tire gap between these top five. I mean, Tuesday and Donut are on 1 lap older tires, so not the most massive tire disadvantage. I mean, we've seen tougher tire managements, especially with Greedo earlier on, having 4 lap older tires and just getting absolutely gobbled up by the field. As we see, Yuzi is still trying to put a lot of pressure onto the back of the Aston. Is he going to go for it? He's got DRS. He's got the speed. He's got the slipstream. It's going to be a drag race down into Brooklands, and that's a drag race that the McLaren is going to win. Yuzi up into second, but we do have to remember he still has those 13 seconds of pens, so this will really just be for show.
And we've got to think about driver of the day as we're coming into these closing stages of the race. Who do you think is your candidate?
Oh, that is a tough one. That is actually a really good question. I have to kind of look at things here. Yeah, I'd honestly be pretty curious to see who's actually made up the most positions. We'll start with that. We'll stop for that. Oh, look at this. Yuzi and Lobster still duking it out now for position. Still trying to give it their all. We'll see. Ooh. Oh, they touch. A little bit of touching there coming through the final corner as they go onto the Hamilton straight. A little bit of contact between Husey and Lobster now. I think if we're taking into account the sprint and the feature, I'm going to give it to NDNV. Had a horrendous sprint race, truthfully, but he has pretty much now clawed his way back to the point where he is pretty much knocking on the door of a podium here. So I think that is driver of the day material for me, just because he didn't let it get to him mentally, and he pretty much had a really good recovery.
I think I'm going to go ahead and give mine to Donut Gorilla. He's currently up 2 positions from where he started. He's been in first from about lap 1. He has not faltered. He's not made a mistake just yet. And he's drove an incredibly consistent race. So I think I'm going to give my vote to Donut Gorilla.
Alright, so you've heard it here, folks. It is Donut Gorilla for F7 and NDNV for me, as we have a McLaren off. It is Jay Tuesday off. He is off into the grass. We caught the last little bit of that moment, and oh, that was rough there from the McLaren. And that is pretty much a podium guaranteed for NDNV, as Jay Tuesday is now going to fight all the way back through. He's going to go ahead and try to close in the gap. But, man, with about 3 laps to go, that is definitely not the instant you wanted to have here.
No, he will be gutted with that. It looks like he was on for a sure podium. And just that little mistake coming out of Maggots and Beckett's. He went around, and now he's dropped all the way down from 4th and provisional 3rd down to P8.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty entertaining British Grand Prix here. And I mean, it's really just been a race of management, as we kind of talked about going into the race here before we started even sprint quali. Is that you got to manage the tires, you got to manage pretty much everything humanly possible, because the dirty air is tough, the tire wear is tough, and everything in general can just be really tough around this track here at Silverstone. But yeah, I mean, we got about, oh, look at this line here from Iraq Lobster. That's definitely the dirty air kicking in, but look who it invited to the party. NDNV is so close yet so far away from DRS range. And I mean, honestly, if that's a penalty coming for NDNV, then he might actually grab a P2 here.
Yeah. Looks like Iraq Lobster is starting to maybe struggle in that, struggle in the dirty air. If he keeps making mistakes like that, this could definitely be a P2 for NDNV.
It really could, and honestly, what a result that'd be for Ferrari. Because here's the thing too, in the overalls, Ferrari and Aston Martin are really close to each other in the overalls. They're rivals for P1. And, well, granted, I think Aston Martin would still maybe outscore them, but not by a lot. Actually, no, I don't think they would. If we see ND&V get this position, then I think Aston Martin will actually be outscored by Ferrari here, despite the fact that both Ferraris or actually only one of the Ferraris is in the points and both Astons are in the points. But because Moe Nabs is pretty much at the lower reaches of the points, then it's pretty much a done deal here that Ferrari will outscore them. But for that to happen, NDNV does need to pass Lobster here. So he's in DRS range now, but is it just a lap too late as we're about to get ready to start the final lap of the British Grand Prix weekend here at Rush Racing League. We're going to see who can go ahead and get these moves done. He's within half a second now, so definitely seeing some struggle there from from Iraq Lobster on those hard tires. And the final lap is underway. The other Ferrari gets a 3-second time penalty. That's not going to do himself any favors, but we're going to see here as these drivers are going to continue to go ahead and fight it out for position as Deli Fuller makes a odd last lap pit stop here. So interesting call there from the Williams, but we're going to stand by with this battle here because this could decide, because Husey does have 13 seconds of pens just up the road ahead. So, I mean, he may be able to get that 3-second remove, but you're definitely not getting that 10-second remove. So, NDV washing a bit wide there as he's going to try to put pressure onto the back of the Aston Martin. Aardvark gets a 3-second penalty once again. So, we'll see. Oh, he's got to really keep this gap tight through Maggots and Beckett. This is really his last chance to get this move done. The Ferrari is going to go ahead and chase him down. A bit of a snap there from Iraq Lobster. And that's exactly what he needs. That is exactly what NDNV needs. And he needed that so badly. He is up into provisional P2. But coming around the last few corners now, it has been a dominant drive here ever since that lap 1 incident between his teammate and Dutch Verstappen. Coming through the final corner now, Donut Gorilla wins the British Grand Prix. Husey will come home on track in P2, but NDNV going from zero to hero as Iraq Lobster flies up the track in the last corner.
Yeah, very, very close battling as we see. Oh, Greedo's around on the line as well.
Oh, I think he'll still keep that position because he already crossed the line, but yeah, that's going to be a pretty pricey repair bill for the Red Bull garage. And yeah, we're going to actually see some drivers potentially still battling it out. Now we have a Ferrari versus Williams battle here, right here towards the end. We'll see who's going to win this one out between Deadly Fuller and Moose. But that's the last battle here on track. As actually there's a Haas involved in that incident as well. So, I mean, interesting stuff. What do you make of this Grand Prix here at Silverstone here, F7? Because it was getting pretty spicy there towards the end, I will say.
It was very, very good racing. We saw some incidents, but NDNV able to come out on that second place spot, come out on top of Iraq Lobster. We saw he made that very unfortunate mistake, got on the power a little bit too early, and just had a big snap. So very, very good racing from the pair of them.
100%. So we're gonna see the podium, we're gonna see the results, and then we're gonna go ahead and get our podium finishers and our sprint winner into the comms box. So If you are Donut Gorilla, if you are NDNV, Iraq Lobster, and Dutch Verstappen, please head on into the commentary box so we can go ahead and run some interviews, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the stream. But before that, we have a podium celebration to get to here. It was a very well-driven race from these drivers here. And the vote is in from the Twitch chat. It is going to be your driver of the day for NDNV, making a stronger cover drive on the day. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the results with the cleanest driver being Daz. Daz is the cleanest driver of the day, so he'll get an extra point for that. And now taking a look through the finishing results, it is going to be Donut Gorilla taking P1, followed by NDNV, Iraq Lobster, Dutch Verstappen, Husey, Symphonic, actually having a really good drive himself. And then we have Jay Toozy, Greedo, Daz, Aardvark, Quiet Cake, Minmeh, the Governor, Moe Nabs, Kumar, Deli Phillip, Moose, Asif, Milano, and the Flying Kiwi, wrapping up our final session here. So, we're going to go ahead and get these drivers in, get some interviews going, and then, yeah, so we do have one driver here at the moment. We do have Donut Gorilla. We're going to give it a moment. We're going to give it about another minute to see if we get anybody else. And then I'll let F7 start the interviews off. But yeah, before that, F7, overall, how do you think this is going to set things up for the rest of the season?
Um, I think that it's definitely going to be a little bit of a shake-up. We saw Donut Gorilla get another win. I believe that's his second this season. But we may see a little bit of a shift in the constructors, as I don't believe either of the Mercs were very close to that top 4 or 5. So definitely going to be a bit of a shake-up there.
Indeed, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any of the other podium finishers or the sprint winners. So F7, go ahead and kick off our interviews here with the race winner, Donut Gorilla.
Well done today. Very, very good drive. Just talk us through your race today. How did it go?
I think I got a bit lucky. I disconnected a couple of times in quali, and so I wasn't sure if I was going to get a lap in. Got back in, and then I only had time for one lap, so it was kind of do or die. I managed to put it on pole at the time when I finished the lap, and then one of the Mercs and my teammate beat me out. So started P3, pretty good spot, better than I was expecting. I think that was because the McLarens bottled their last quali runs, and then just had to manage the tyres the whole race. Pitted early, got the undercut on the other guys, came out a couple seconds in front. Greedo was the only traffic, and then got past him pretty clean. Leached his DRS for a bit too, might I add, to pull away. But yeah, drove by myself for most of the race. I think it was just trying to manage the tyres and keep the gap behind at the same time.
Well, obviously you had a tremendous amount of pace today. You were able to gap the guys behind by 3 seconds, and then you were able to hold it. So, did you feel that you were going to be this fast this weekend, or were you worried?
No, it was completely unexpected. I didn't do a whole lot of practice going into the weekend, but I knew my teammate was going to be fast. If I could just hold up, stay with him, I would be in with a good shout. I was fully expecting both McLarens to be hoofing it away, and Greedo as well. But yeah, I think I just tried to keep that 3 second gap because I think I was on 2 warnings for like 80% of that race. So I just wanted to make sure if I got another warning, I had a fail safe. I didn't drop any positions.
Well done. Incredible race today. I'll pass you over to Rakus if he's got any further questions.
Thank you.
Donut Gorilla, what a race it was from you today. You had really good pace in both the sprint and the feature race. Overall, how much prep work did you put coming into this race here at Silverstone? Because it's a pretty tough track.
Look, not a lot. the sprint race didn't go very well, so I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to reflect the amount of prep I put in for the main race, but it wasn't to be. I got a bit lucky. Started well up the top, didn't have to deal with all the carnage behind. But yeah, I probably only put a handful of hours into the practice.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you had some really good pace, especially in the feature race. How did you feel that tire degradation was out there? Because it seemed like you were managing it better than some of the other drivers you were going up against.
I think it's if you don't manage it, it's very bad, and we knew that coming in. So one of the goals for the race was to manage the tire wear as best we could, because we knew a lot of people were going to be pushing and then getting close to puncture territory, and then we'd just get free lap time compared to them because they'd have to slow right down. So tried to manage the tires from the pit stop so that even though tire wear wasn't that bad originally, it wouldn't bite us in the bum towards the end of the race, which worked in our favour. Helped me keep the gap to the little cluster behind the McLarens and the Aston, and then yeah, that was pretty much all.
Two more questions before we go ahead and let you go here for the night. You had a pretty good race here in Silverstone. Do you think you're going to be able to continue that next week at a much different circuit of Monza? Equally as historic, but not nearly as tough on tires.
I'd like to hope so, but you never know. Like a lot of people that may have had a bad race here are going to go away and try to redeem themselves next week. So it's always going to be a competitive grid. You never know what's going to happen really, but I'd like to hope that I'd be up there in the top 8 fighting for those big points.
Awesome. And the last question here on the night is there anyone you'd like to thank or shout out after tonight's performance?
The two engineers, Mars and Terence, that were helping us, Aardvark as well. He had did well done trying to fix and bring his race back from what happened. So he had a great recovery as well.
All right, once again, congratulations on the win, Donut, and we will see you next week at Monza.
Thank you very much.
All right, we actually did get one other driver into the commentary box for a round of interviews, and it is the man who went from zero to hero here, and the driver of the day, NDNV. How you doing today, mate?
Too bad yourself, bro. Not too bad.
So, you had a pretty rough time of it at the sprint, like your teammate. You both pretty much locked out the back row, especially with you guys being in such a close fight with Aston Martin. Not exactly what you wanted, but you turned around in the sprint. What was the mindset coming from what was arguably a sprint race that could not got any worse to having a P2 come the feature race?
Oh, man, it feels like a good achievement, I can't lie. Oh, man, it feels good. Obviously not the result that I hoped it was, but it was a result I'm glad I got, so...
Indeed. So I'm going to ask you two more questions before I pass you over to F7 here. It is going to be Ferrari's home track next week in Monza. So do you think you guys are going to be quick around Monza? Do you guys think it's going to be a bit of a struggle track? What are your thoughts before heading into the Italian Grand Prix?
I I honestly think we'll be all good. Me, myself, yeah, I've been with a Ferrari fan most of my life, so I race Monza every single time I get, so I have a fair good amount of practice on it. So I'm feeling good on Monza, and I'm excited for it too. And yeah, I think the team will do well. We know we've got some strong drivers, so hopefully we can, extend the lead, and overalls if we do overtake Aston in this week's race weekend.
Last question before I pass you over to my co-commentator here. Is there anyone you'd like to thank or shout out after your very impressive 0 to hero race here today?
Uh, you know, shout out to Muzz for stepping as a reserve because we needed the extra driver. Shout out definitely to Dante, who was my engineer the whole race. Yeah, without his strategy, I wouldn't be able to get that amazing P2. So yeah, shout out to him and thank the Lord he's in my team.
Yeah, the engineers have really pulled their weight with this one. Once again, congratulations on the P2, and I'll pass you over to F7 if he's got any other further questions or comments.
Well done today. You went from P20 in the sprint to P2 in the feature race. What were your thoughts going into this feature? Obviously, you didn't exactly have the best sprint. What was your plan?
Yeah, obviously for my sprint, I was hoping to get out on the last lap, but yeah, I saw Husey on his left side. No, I was his flying left side to pull out, and I missed the margin by a second, so I was pretty much wasn't happy about that. Sprint race has started, it got taken out by I think by sub 1 year and just came last, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna just keep my head down, Yeah, Dante was telling me keep my head down and keep it going, So I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that, Put a couple of laps. I think my first out lap or my first push lap, I invalidated, pushed it too hard, and that kind of got under my skin. I was like, fuck, man, I'm not gonna do well in this race because it's not a good track for me. I did my final lap and I was P2 for a bit, and then I was like, oh shit, I'm starting, top 5. This is mean. So yeah, was unsure at the start, but turned it around. Happy days.
Well, well done. That's my questions. I'll pass this back over to Rackus.
All right, well, I'm just saying once again, congratulations on the podium, and we'll see you next week at Monza, NDNV.
See you guys there. Good racing, boys.
All right, that is going to go ahead and wrap things up here for Division 5 here at Rush Racing League. It has been a very chaotic sprint weekend, the first sprint weekend of the season here in Oceania. I want to give a massive shout out to our sponsors, Sim Racing Center, Pagnian, SimLab, and of course AI369. You guys have all been fantastic, and we wouldn't be here without you guys. But most importantly, I do want to thank our fantastic Twitch chat for being as awesome as always. Thank you to F7 for jumping in here with me and getting ready to jump into a very chaotic sprint weekend. Any predictions going into Monza, F7, before we sunset the stream here?
It's going to be competitive. I mean, Monza can bring chaos, and it can also bring some very good racing. So I'm very excited to see how everyone's going to go.
It is an excitement that I share with you because Monza is such a historic track, and it's a fast track, so drivers are going to be driving pretty much fully to the limit. Well, once again, thank you guys so much for tuning on in. Be sure to go ahead and drop a follow if you haven't already. On behalf of F7, my name is Patrick Coleman, aka Rekus. I've been your host and commentator throughout the entirety of the sprint week here at Silverstone, and tune in tomorrow when we have more racing action coming up for you here at Silverstone. Have a good night.